I asked that question to him, and it sounded like
I
he
thought
was.
the law, they only allowed us two.
Yeah, I think there must have been a lot of, negative feedback from the towns because it's too expensive to do
Mhm.
A
and
full-blown,
because the
full-blown
DRA audits the statistical reval, if they came back with 3 minor, corrections, but for the most part, the reval was, in line with the state. So as long as the state can back up what the assessor is picking up for values and it's accurate, then they won't force the town to go with a full-blown reval.
So
And
there
this
is
is
no
what-
limit no more on how many of
That's
those.
what it
That's
sounded
what-
like from
Yeah,
what Tim was telling us.
Yeah, that's what Tim was saying.
We can go full blown if you really wanna spend the money. But the state's gonna let us and it's working.
The cheaper way's better.
Exactly, it's not broke, it's not fixed. Alrighty, that was number 8. Number 9, to see the town will vote and raise and appropriate the sum of $60,000 to be added to the fire department emergency vehicle capital reserve fund previously established for this purpose as summarized in the capital improvements plan. Alright, take it away, Ted.
This is why I wanted to, I don't know if anybody had any comments. On, Tuesday night, when the Board of Selectmen met, and we went over all of these, I had a few questions. And one of them was, when this fund was first established, the chief wanted 40,000 a year. And then, the transfer station came in and they wanted 20,000 a year for their roll-off. So instead of adding another 20,000, they split it. They went 20 and 20. And now they're coming in and they're asking for 60,000. And I would have no objection to that, except that the chief was also asking for 20,000 for a forestry truck, which he desperately needs, because he had to turn one over back to the state, because it was getting too old, right? Or the chief- yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so, when we add all of these warrant articles, if they were all to pass, the tax rate would go up by $1.03 a thousand. And it's pretty much the same thing as what happened last year. But last year, we had enough money in surplus that we took 100,000 and applied it towards the tax rate, plus another 50,000 of unanticipated funds we got. We're not gonna be able to do that this year. So whatever you vote for these warrant articles, if it comes up to $1.03, that's what your taxes are gonna go up. My estimation is, the taxes went up so much last year that I think we should try and give the taxpayers a little bit of a break this year. So, my suggestion was, why don't we bump it up from 20,000 to 30,000? And then he's also have the 20,000 for his truck, for a total of 50. And next year, we could bump that back up to 50,000 a year. So my suggestion would be to lower that amount from 60,000 to 30,000. No. I can't see the chief. So I wanted to, the chief wasn't at that meeting, and we decided we'd wait to get his comments.
You can put whatever amount you want in there, as far as I'm concerned. The 60,000 came when we did CIP, because I've been telling you for 10 years that in 2021, we need to buy a new fire truck. Ours will be 30 years old. So in 2021, we're gonna need around $400,000, which is actually a little low figure, but hopefully we can meet that. So, we're 6 years out, 6 years at 60,000 is 360, we got 30,000 in the bank, would give us 400,000. This came out of CIP, the 60,000, that's how we came up with 60,000 for the next 6 years. If you don't wanna fund that, that's fine, you know?
Well, it's not that I don't wanna
No,
fund it.
any amount you can put in.
It's like, if you were looking at your personal finances,
Oh, I agree.
and you and your wife both work, and your wife gets laid off, you kinda pull back a little bit until things get back to normal. Well, I think we got abnormal last year. I mean, the tax rate went up by $2.50. I mean, a lot of it had nothing to do with this portion of the tax rate, but we should do what we can to try and ease things a little bit, and we can go back up to that 60,000 in a year.
I agree, I'm a taxpayer, I pay, you know, taxes are hard to come by, so whatever the town wants to put in that fund is fine with me. It's a savings account, we put some money away, but in 2021, when somebody's I won't be the fire chief in 2021, I tell you right now. Somebody should get up and ask for a new fire truck, and you can fund the funding, whatever money you have in the bank is fine. You know, you might have to do a lease purchase, you might have to do something else. So whatever money you wanna put away is great, but this 60,000 came from 6 years out,
Right,
you know, doing the math.
right.
That's how this figures in. If the town wants to reduce that,
See,
no
the other
problem.
thing you look at is, back in 2014,
like you said, you could up it down the years, down the road, when there's less expenses in town.
Yeah,
You
starting
want
next
to
year.
Fund it more.
starting next year.
Have we done lease purchases in the past?
Yeah, the newest engine we have was $250,000. We put 50 down, and then we paid 50 for 4 years.
Okay.
You know, those big purchases, that's common.
I think we did a transfer station truck like that, didn't we?
Just
So I
the
think
way
to
to,
get-
you know.
So to
fund
get
these
back
big-
to his
big
point,
purchases.
if we put a little bit less, and then after 2021, we come to the point where we don't have enough money, we can always do a lease purchase for the rest, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Kind of the
I
other-
agree with you.
The other thing about that is it's, in a way, it kind of upsets me a little bit to put so much money away for something in the future that I might not be here.
A lot of
It-
people-
it's
a lot of
up
people
to
have this
the-
problem.
But
This
that's
is,
not the way to look at things.
well, no, it is a way to look at
Because
things.
somebody before you was
I
paying for
understand.
all of these things.
Look at, there's nothing wrong with purchasing and leasing it like that, like we did with the roll-off and like we did with the other truck. I can understand putting a few dollars away to get that cost down a little bit. But why, I mean, why pay for something you're not gonna be here? That was the whole thing about that $4,000 with the utility thing. We don't know if that company's gonna be around in 3 or 4 years. That was the whole thing, what that argument was about. So why pay for something that we don't know about?
No, the argument on that was, our policy is, we don't prepay for services or
Well, we have
goods. And the way this was going, the contract was, we were gonna be paying him $4,000 a year for something he was only gonna do 5 years from now.
Just like this.
But no, because this money is going into our account, it's not going to
For
the.
something for 6 years from now.
What?
For something 6 years
That's
from
right,
now.
but we're not prepaying, we're saving. It's the same thing we're doing now with the 4,000, we're not prepaying him, we're putting that 4,000 as CRF, we own that money. And in 5 years, if we sign a contract, well, we already signed the contract, right?
Yep.
If he are still in business, then we're gonna pay him after he does the service. So these are savings accounts.
I understand that, but we're still paying for something today, for something tomorrow.
Somebody has to.
Fred?
Question, all these monies we set aside and we put into, capital reserve funds, do we get any investments out of this, or is it like the trust funds where the town forest, as an example, the last 5 or 6 years, we got like $15 in interest?
Well, the question is, all these money go to the trustees of the trust fund.
Yeah,
And they have a warrant article where they would like to start investing that money rather than just getting a
yeah,
half.
because you don't get anything now for
Yeah.
it.
Right, but they need the authority from the town, you'll see it later on in
Yeah,
the warrant
I saw
article,
that, yeah.
where before they can invest, they need money to pay financial plans. So they're looking into trying getting more return on our money, but they need the town's
Yeah.
approval.
Cause years ago, we used to get almost $500 out of about $15,000-$20,000, it's in a trust fund for the town forest. Now we get $5,
Yeah.
$10, you know?
It's pitiful, I understand that.
5/100%.
Yeah, because of those mutual state funds,
So, I mean, they
the
can
money's
always-
invested in, you
Yeah.
don't have to pay
No,
a
this is
fee,
public
but you
hearing.
don't get much back.
Right.
We're not, this is a public hearing, there's no motions being made here,
You can change these amounts at public hearing.
we can change them after the public hearing.
You can also change them at the public hearing.
Just do it after the fact, let's finish doing what we're on. So, any more discussion on number 9? Alright. 10, to see the town of Wilton raise the appropriate sum of $20,000 for a purchase of a forestry truck. as Ted alluded to earlier, the, chief had to take and send back, what, a 54?
Yeah, we currently have two forestry trucks, 1954, which is obviously 62 years old. And we have a 1985, which is 31 years old. So our plan is to get one fairly new truck, a used truck, nothing brand new. You know, we can get by with used, but something at least in the 2000s. Something possibly has extended cab or four-door, so we can put more people in it.
Four-wheel drive.
Four-wheel
flatbed,
drive, you know, one-ton chassis, or single wheel, so we have one, you know, late model decent forestry truck. Obviously, there's still a lot of woodland in Dunbarton, and we need a vehicle that's reliable and a little newer than the two we have. You know, one's already gone back to the state, so we have the one, but, and that truck needs repair, the one we have. You know, you wanna keep dumping money into that truck that's already 31 years old, we're having some electrical issues, the rocker panels rusted out, they gotta get that fixed, pass inspection. So, you know, we're looking to buy a used truck, like I said, nothing brand new, something used that we can, you know, go a little bit more modern forestry truck, so.
What about equipping?
We're asking, huh?
What about equipment? What
Taking
kind of
off
stuff
the
do you need on it?
Truck we have.
Okay.
And it could, depending on what vehicle we find out there. We're looking on the internet, you know, there's some pretty decent vehicles out there. You know, under $20,000, you know, we might not spend all this, but you need a little bit of leeway. Someone's found a truck for a forestry truck, it's already a forestry truck, it's already got a body on it and everything else. So, you know, we don't know what we can find out there, but this is, and we think we can buy a pretty decent truck for 20,000 and get it outfitted and painted and all that stuff. for 20,000.
Any questions on number 10, any more discussion? No? Thank you, John.
Yep.
11, to see the town will vote and raise the appropriate sum of $44,000 to purchase a new police cruiser with equipment and installation of equipment as summarized in the CIP. A portion of these funds to come from the police special detail revolving fund in the amount of $18,000. The balance of $26,000 to come from taxes. We do not have the police chief here tonight, so we'll do our best we can to answer any questions or, I think it's pretty straightforward, he's got, the 2,000.
Yeah, this is another warrant article that I objected to Tuesday night. If you look at his, fleet, he has two, 2013 vehicles, one's a Tahoe and some Ford Explorer or something like that. And he would like to replace the Crown Victoria, which is used solely by one part-timer.
That one's an older one though, that's what, 06 or 08?
Yeah. Oh, wait.
I think,
It's used solely by, one part-timer.
It's got about 100,000 miles on it, pretty close to it.
And if you look at, his log from last year, he did 500 hours of patrol. And 90% of his patrols are on Saturday mornings and Sunday mornings. So, I suggested we skip over this warrant article, wait one more year. As you can see, we get almost 9,000 a year from special duty. So that would increase it to 27,000. And we would have that much more to apply towards another vehicle. I just can't see why somebody that uses a vehicle 500 hours a year needs a practically new vehicle.
Is that vehicle experiencing any major mechanical problems right now?
Not that we're aware of.
And are these the only three
think it was-
vehicles the police department has to?
No, they have four. I
Okay.
think it was last year, the year before, he had some problems with it, but they were all straightened out. And I know that last year, there was just routine maintenance on that vehicle.
You say you like to skip over this article, but according to my handbook from the municipal association, they don't recommend skipping over an article. It's there voted up or down, that's what they recommend doing. But you guys can do what you want, but,
Or take it out,
you know,
whatever gets there.
yeah, you can take
Well,
it
that's
out.
what I meant, when I said skip over, I meant
You
take
can
the
take it out
article,
tonight or
take the
whatever.
article out.
Cause they don't recommend doing that at town meeting, they recommend voting it up or down.
Right,
Right.
right.
I know from the CIP discussions and such and through the, the whole process, the chief was looking to replace this vehicle this year, and then replace another one next year, and that'd be the Tahoe, and I believe it was supposed to be slated for the fire department to become their command vehicle.
Right.
So he didn't have to take and buy another command vehicle, and kinda just recycle that whole thing, so. I don't know, John, if you wanna speak to any of that or not, because you're familiar
That's
with
one of his plans, I
it,
mean,
it's a plan, right?
yeah, most fire departments take hand-me-down police cruisers as vehicles, so his plan was, I don't wanna speak for the police chief.
No.
I get told by myself,
Oh, and during the CIP meetings,
I
that
think
that
this
was
vehicle's
intense.
only a two-wheel drive vehicle, it's a car, so they're gonna obviously buy another four-wheel drive vehicle. And then Joe will get the oldest four-wheel drive vehicle, which, cause he doesn't use it like, like Ted said, every day, it should last longer than, does on the road every day. And then eventually hand it over to us, so we don't have to go out and buy a vehicle, and then, they purchase another vehicle, cause obviously their vehicles are on the road all the time. I think it's a plan to be on the CFP.
But again, I'm not against buying a new vehicle, I'm just asking, can we wait one more year?
They're asking the
No,
wrong
no,
guy.
I'm looking at you, I'm just saying, that was the question I was posing.
Yeah,
Can't wait for another year and save another $9,000 in special duty, that'd be that much less we would have to tax the taxpayers to buy a new vehicle? I mean, the vehicles are only 3 years old. The two that they use full-time now.
because I'm not the police chief.
No,
I
I
have
know,
no idea how many miles they put on, what they
Right.
spend for maintenance, but, it's not my thing, so obviously, maybe somebody should have been taking the police department.
That'd been helpful, absolutely. So. Alright, any more discussion on Article 10? Item 11, I'm sorry. Hearing none, we'll go to 12. See, the town will vote and raise appropriate sum of $16,825 to purchase mobile data terminal equipment for 2 police cruisers and installation of equipment. So, yeah, I wish the police chief was here.
right,
Part of the swap over from Goffstown, to Goffstown from Bow, is in looking in how the whole dispatch and everything works. He was looking to, and correct me if I'm wrong here, guys, purchase mobile data terminals to put in the cruisers, which are basically little laptops that have instant access through the cell modem. And he could have, they basically it ends up keeping the police in their cruisers longer, on the road longer, doing more of their duties, instead of having to come and go into the office and type up reports or check things, and it gives them a lot more versatility and flexibility on the road, so that they keep them in the cruisers.
yeah. I'm not sure it had anything to do with going to Goffstown, I think we could have done the same thing if we stayed in Lowell. But the point is, when he came in with that suggestion, we were all for that, because now if they have an incident, they pretty much have to come back into the station to type in the incident on their computer. This would allow them to do that while they're still out in the road. They wouldn't have to be, and I don't know how often it happens, but whenever it does happen, they wouldn't have to come back to the station. That would give them more time patrolling and everything. And now that you mentioned this, I forgot about this warrant article, is, again, that's tied back to the cruisers. He's asking for $44,000 for a cruiser, and then another $17,000 for mobile. So I mean, I'm just trying to spread things out a little bit. I'm not saying wait another 5 years, I'm just saying, let's wait a year and let's try and have things calm down as far as our taxes are. That's all I'm saying. It may sound like I'm negative, but I'm not. I'm just trying to look out for the taxpayers' benefit. I mean, they got whacked with $2.54 a thousand increase. I'm just saying, let's give them a little break for a year. I mean, these things are all well and good, but they're not so dire that we have to do them this year.
I hear what you're saying, Ted, but I don't see anybody in the audience talking like that.
I know, but I don't see anybody disagreeing either.
I'll disagree with you.
Okay, well, you can disagree with me, you know,
I'll agree with you, Ted.
and I'm just saying, these are my
My
opinions.
taxes went up $800 this year.
Mine
One year
mine did
increase in
too.
taxes, $800, thanks to last year's spending.
The
It's
school-
1 year,
The school budget this year is
12%,
even bigger.
1 year. And it's gonna do the same again if we keep spending. We have no commercial in this town. We're all residential. And it's getting a little expensive.
Yeah, Ron.
I agree with you.
You're right, most of it, $1.50 of it was from the school.
Well, the
Right.
school increase this year is even bigger than last year.
I don't know, but
I've seen it,
the
it's,
point I was making
there's a lot of
is-
big dollar items
is
in
if
there.
we wouldn't have taken the $150,000 from our unassigned fund balance, our surplus, and our revenue that was unanticipated and applied it, the taxes for the town side would have gone up almost $1. So your taxes would have gone up almost $3 a thousand. But we're not gonna be able to do that this year, that's what I'm trying to put across here. Whatever we end up voting for, this is what your taxes are gonna go by. We don't have any more money in reserve that we can use to offset the tax rate. As a matter of fact, we probably used more money last year than we should have. I know Brian was not for it, but we felt with the big increase from the school and the town, it was a prudent thing to do. But we won't be able to do it again this year.
I hate draining the rainy day fund down to zero, it's not, I don't look
Yeah,
at
right
it.
now it's below what the state recommends.
Well, you said it was only gonna be 300, a little over 300,000, right?
Right now,
Left in it, so
yeah,
if you
well,
go taking
I'm more
150
comfortable than what it was, cause when we first did that, reduction, it was down to the low 200s. Like 250, maybe 251, I think it was actually what it was. You know, that's getting, that's just, $250,000 isn't a whole lot of, rainy day fund for,
No,
something
not
like
when,
that.
not when you're spending money like this, it don't help out much.
Yeah, I think Ted, it's imperative before we start voting on a lot of these warrant articles that you bring that up to a lot of people, cause I know, like, when people vote on the warrant articles, they see it's like, oh, it's only gonna impact 2 cents. Oh, it's only gonna impact 3 cents, and none of them start adding it all up in their heads as to what the impact is gonna be, and then when they get the tax bill, they tend to say, oh, it's the selectmen's fault. It's like, no, it wasn't the selectmen's fault, you guys gave us a good operating budget, we're the ones that voted all the warrant articles in, and I don't think people realize that.
No, that's a good point, Fran.
But it seems only the warrant articles we're discussing, those were put in by the selectmen. So we didn't wanna adjust any numbers until we had a public hearing. And apparently we're trying to get an idea of how you people feel about what we're talking about.
And the only sad part though, again, there's 15 people in this room.
Well, yeah, but that's what a public hearing is for.
Oh, I hear you.
I mean, if you go to SB2, it'd be a lot worse.
It's gonna be out
Because 15 people can change everything, they
No,
can.
That's what happens if you're gonna vote in SB two.
yeah.
Right.
No.
That's right.
But again,
It's
unfortunately, the people that don't understand it,
Right,
they're not here.
right.
Yeah, but that's the sad part of it all, and, getting on a soapbox, and, you get what you put into it. If you don't put any time and effort into your government or whatever organization, you get what you
Don't bitch.
get and you like it. The apathy is gonna take and create this atmosphere that we're in. And it's sad, and you gotta participate, and that's how it's designed. And I'm thankful that you guys actually showed up to participate, because we need to hear this, 'cause we don't wanna make a decision in a vacuum. But, and no offense to you guys, but 15 people, in my opinion, is still a vacuum.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally agree.
I thank you for coming.
25% of us are apartments.
That's true.
Yeah, exactly.
We've already heard from you folks.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, there are many of us here who have no vested interest in this.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
Maybe it's time to, collectively as a board of
What are my
selectmen,
tax dollars?
bend your legislature's ears on the town's behalf to tell them to get a finger out of their ass and, do something about school funding.
Well, when I was at
Get it off the backs of the taxpayers.
When I was at Ron Warner's, calling hours yesterday, I bent Mr. Booton's ear, Senator
Good.
Booton's ear for about, a good 15-20 minutes about that kind of
I
stuff.
mean, this crap of
Yeah.
taking a pledge and no new taxes, they're getting us every which way we can, and the town,
A
it's
lot of
killing
it's
the
cost,
towns.
a lot of it's cost shifting, what they do, you know,
Yeah.
they promise us revenue, like, room with meals tax is supposed to be up to like 50% share. It's like 30, maybe if we're lucky, it's 30% share, I don't know, maybe you know the numbers, John. You know, stuff like that, they keep cutting it and cutting it and cutting it and keeping more of it and giving us less.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah, I
understand,
mean,
that's
yeah.
what I mean, I firmly believe it's,
Special ed
Sound
was
along that.
supposed to be,
Pardon?
special ed was supposed to be funded at
Yep.
a higher level, and they
Absolutely.
kept cutting it back and cutting it back.
That's why there's a
from where
Dover
they
lawsuit out
originally
there.
funded it.
The school funding, they, you know, they capped it and they shouldn't have capped it, and Dover's suing them, and the state's kinda, you know, back on its haunches on that, and we've got some more money from it, but not a whole hell of a lot. Yeah.
you're all wrangling with these things, and Ted's bringing up points, valid points, none of us want
Absolutely.
a tax reform. But everything you're talking about, you said put it off to another year.
What happens when you keep putting it off?
Yes,
till
I
the-
mean,
keep
it's,
kicking the can.
I'm not saying to spend money, what I'm gonna say, these aren't gonna go away.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
the-
no, but if you take in aggregate, for example, the fire department,
Hold on, Bob.
you know, if you look back a few years, he was asking for money for his fire truck,
Yeah,
and we were funding that. Now this year, he's coming in, besides his fire truck, he also wants to
well,
force.
I understand that, but yeah.
So I'm saying, why don't we compromise and reduce that money for the fire truck and buy the forestry truck, and next year, that money's not gonna be asked for,
Yeah.
we can put that back into the fire truck, and you'll still get his money eventually.
Yeah, but
There'll be something else.
Yeah,
It'll be the command vehicle.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's,
It's
you
the
know,
command vehicle will be next year.
we're
because that was the whole
agonizing
idea with
over-
this thing.
We're agonizing over the town part of it, with it, is a bigger problem.
Alright, Bob had his hand raised, please.
well, these departments have made the request,
Mhm.
and they've requested a specific amount of money.
Mhm.
And I don't think it's fair that we reduce it here, because these are written, we're gonna have a town meeting. If they wanna reduce it at town meeting, they can amend the warrant,
On the floor, yeah.
they can raise the money up or raise the money down, they can do what they want. But I think there's more participation at the town meeting than there are, you know, at most of these meetings. And I think it's only fair that more people weigh in, cause we're not the only ones living in town.
That's a valid point.
Alright, one correction, this is really just a draft, this has not been voted on. Okay, and all these warrant articles right now that we're speaking of, the money warrant that we spoke about so far, are all in the hands of the selectmen. We could have reduced any of these, or not put any of these in here, if we had chose to. Okay, and the next one is a classic example.
But with due respect,
Yeah.
again, is you do have these, and you have the ability to say, the selectmen don't recommend, or they recommend, and even though they're drafts, department heads came to you with requests of what their needs were. They may be able to make the argument that it'll be supportive or not supportive at the town meeting. It gives more people a chance to weigh in.
Yeah, by the same token, if we take, for example, the fire department truck, you're asking for 60. If we reduce that to 30 here, this is the selectmen asking the voters for 30. John could get up, anybody at town meeting could get up and say, you know, I don't think 30 is enough. I make a motion that we increase it to 60. Somebody could get up and say, I don't think we should be putting 30,000 in for the fire truck this year. I think we should zero that out. Anybody can make any motion at town meeting,
Inside voice.
right?
Inside voice, you're starting to raise up a little. That's why I tell my granddaughter. I understand, you just get.
But it doesn't matter, when you come right down to it, it doesn't matter what we put in here. Anybody can change any of these numbers at town meeting. They can make a motion to try and change the numbers.
Ralph?
We're kinda far off the topic of, what is it, mobile data terminal for two police cruisers? We get back to the,
It's a public hearing, so it's your hearing, you're telling us, so we're.
but we're kinda far from the topic.
Yeah, I'm hearing what you're saying now. So, back to the police, mobile data terminals. Discussion on Article 12,
So this will equip 2 out of the 4 cruisers.
correct.
In the money that they had on the previous warrant article for the cruiser, did it include adding a data terminal to that new device And this would be two in
I'm
addition,
not
so
100%
for
certain.
3 would be required?
I don't think it wasn't discussed that way.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
not
it
positive
wasn't-
on that though.
Okay,
Good
because
question.
when
But I
it says,
couldn't
you know,
swear
to
it
purchase
either.
and equip,
Yeah,
I think, my understanding was supposed to be purchased on equipment as it currently sits now,
yeah,
cruiser.
and the discussions have always been just two terminals. I don't recall anything else.
They get state bid last year.
That's a good question, I don't know.
But
the
it is
answer
a
to
good
that.
question though.
and back to what someone else was saying, if this is for, so they don't have to come into the office to do their paperwork, as opposed to, I see a lot of police cars and emergency vehicles using data terminals as a result of doing interactive data right there as they're
Well, I-
processing a particular call.
And that's
That's
what
part
they'll
of
be doing.
Yeah.
It's for
It's
that
all
too,
of it.
Ron. It's, as the chief explained it, they can query up a license plate and then do a wants a warrant right on the spot instead of
Yeah.
calling it in, and as he explained it, they sometimes get in a queue, so they may not get their answers back in a
Right.
timely fashion, where this is right away, it's,
Cause I think, Brian, you were saying this would help them with some of their other paperwork, and I'm thinking
Yeah,
like,
that too, yeah.
our police department isn't that busy that they can't afford to come into the office.
Well, no, it's, a lot of it is, you know, the daily, you know, like Tom just said, you know, instead of, you know, calling on the radio for a plate check, they can just type it in,
Right.
get the thing right back, you know, when they have an incident, they can start the paperwork right there and just, you know, type in the pertinent information that's right there, fresh in their minds. You know, like, you know, what actually happened, instead of waiting to go back and then having to take and write down notes and all that, it's, you know, so that's the kind of paperwork I was talking about there. Chuck, you had your hand raised?
Yeah, I hate to do this, but just to go back to the cruiser that
Yeah.
you were just talking about. Now, I think we got one through the state bid, didn't we? Purchased through,
Yeah, this was two.
This is to,
this one is,
Yeah,
that was
it's
gonna
The
be.
priced out.
vehicle's only like $30,000, and the rest is radios and.
it's
Well,
equipment.
ours,
Okay,
equipment,
that's
yeah.
what,
I just priced one this week for Kepler Mutual Aid, the Tahoe's $32,000, so it's bid
32.
right now.
Yeah.
So they're
Now,
he
what
wants to buy another Ford.
is this basically gonna be the same thing, a Chevy? Tahoe?
No, they're going away from the Tahoe, going back to the
Going back to the
Ford.
Ford.
The Explorers.
Yeah, they're interceptors.
So it doesn't,
Interceptor.
it probably doesn't include this then,
No,
Matt?
no.
Huh? Or do you really know? Oh,
I
sure.
honestly don't know that
Be
answer.
okay.
AK, yeah.
Don't know the answer for
Okay.
certain.
If I had to guess, not that I know anything about the police, if I had to guess,
Mhm.
the two terminals would go into the two newest vehicles,
Right.
and the oldest vehicle won't have the terminal.
Could be
So
one
when
of
you
those.
buy your new cruiser, that terminal that he wants to get would go in that car, cause the two full-timers, you know, the full-timers have
Right.
the newer cars, so.
Yeah.
That's just my guess, I don't know.
Makes sense.
You're probably not wrong.
Any more discussion on the data terminals?
I think we killed it.
I'm good with that. 13, see the town will vote and raise the appropriate sum of $100,000 to reconstruct a section of Grapevine Road, phase 2, approximately 7,500 feet. This will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7, Roman numeral 6, and will not lapse until the construction is complete or by December 31st, 2021, whichever comes first. Jeffrey,
Well,
I'll
yeah,
put it in your lap.
well, last year the town was generous enough to, give us $100,000 and we put it toward the worst section of Grapevine Road, which was a big deal and did quite a bit of work, and, we wanna continue working on that road. And with our present operating budget, it would be a very minimal amount of work done there, so. As we had talked about before, coming back with another warrant article, and I explained last year that wouldn't be it for the road, I'd be back again the following year, and then we'll
Jeff?
with this.
Jeff was kind enough to bring us 3 options, I think, this year.
Yeah,
Yeah, $200,000 like last year, then finish it all off, $100,000, which would get us phase 2.
yep,
And-
140.
Well, no, he was gonna use some of his budget.
yeah,
Yeah.
to do this work, we're gonna take some out of the operating budget and put this $100,000. It's a combined effort.
Right, and no warrant article all, and which would get us a
Yeah.
whole lot. So,
I justify this in my odd way of thinking that we get approximately $560,000 from motor vehicle registrations and $90,000 from highway block grant, which is the cars use the roads. Registration money, we get money back from the state to put into our roads. I know it doesn't exactly total out to this, and we went through a number of years where the motor vehicle me, it pays for itself for those two things. I know that's not the way town government works, I know it has to go in the general fund and all that. But to me, those two numbers are close together and it's feasible. Again, you know, I realize the impact of the taxes last year and any amount we get is good, you know, but $100,000 is a good number that works well with what we're trying to accomplish in a timely manner.
We figured 100,000 was a good compromise, we didn't go all the way to the 200, or we didn't wanna cut him off at the knees. He did a lot of good work on Grapevine Road, this will allow him to take and put a, top coat on the asphalt, do the aprons, and then continue on with some culvert work and hopefully get the other base coat down.
We ended up last year doing approximately 5,600 feet of reclaiming, adding gravel, drainage and all that on Burnham Lane, Grapevine Road, and its intersection at Tenny Hill Road. It just ironically works out, putting the top coat on that section of road is approximately $100,000 with shoulder work and tying all the driveways in the way we have to. So, you can figure this any way you want, you could say, well, that 100,000 is gonna go to that, to finish that off, and then we're gonna take part of our operating budget, our road construction out of the operating budget, and continue down the road, but it's a mix of the dollars, no matter which way you look at it, and it won't complete the total project.
But the resident would see that you're gonna go beyond our views.
Oh, yeah, yes,
Down
definitely,
around the hill.
You and I understand phase one, phase two, but
Yeah.
again, the
yeah.
Joe Pugh public doesn't understand.
Yeah, the cutoff
Yeah, I
point
read that.
exactly is a little bit up in the air, depends where the warrant article passes it.
Now, that phase two, that's an additional 7,500 feet of road?
It might not figure out to be exactly 7,500,
It's an
but somewhere
approximation
close to
number.
that. It's-
But it's not gonna be just top coating and doing a little bit of culvert work.
No,
You're actually gonna be-
Actually, yeah.
You're actually gonna-
There's a couple sections that need to be reclaimed and add some gravel. And probably what we're gonna do is we'll do a section, and then we'll skip to the next section and do that, and then the following year we'll tie it all together. Cause some of the pavement's adequate just to do a little shimming and put a top coat on it, cause it's been dug up and rebuilt. So the total length of the road is around 12,000 feet, and we've done 5,600.
And that top section
Well,
down
wait a
is
minute,
the worst.
I don't,
of all.
I said there was 11,000 feet left this year, I don't have my notes, I should have brought
What's
it.
that down to?
It's basically 3 miles long, when you add it all up.
But that's had some construction work on it.
Yeah, actually Simon Audette in the mid-90s.
Yeah.
Basically from where we stop, you know, just a little bit, about 500 or 600 feet down from that, to the bow line has actually been torn up and he put a layer of gravel in. But it only ended up with one coat of pavement on it, and that was 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's falling apart.
And over the years, it had needed some top coat and some maintenance paving and all that. So we have some water problems where the road is kinda pushed out, we gotta cure those. But it has a good base to start with, so that's gonna make
That's gonna help.
what we have to put into it less. The section we.
You got a lot better to work with than what you had to work
Exactly,
with.
the
on that
width
last
is
section.
there,
Oh, yeah.
where we worked this year, until we got the Nancy Cross house, was only 19 feet wide, and I have no idea when they did
I had
that.
a lot of tree work and stuff.
Yeah, we did a lot of heavy tree work, and from that point down, the road is 22 feet wide. So, the road's wider, we don't have to do as much tree work, 'cause I think the tree work was somewhere around $17,000 to have all the trees removed. And we have virtually, you know, just incidental amount of tree work and stuff like that. So, when you do the math for the whole thing per foot, we'll be able to get more done.
Is that a bridge or a culvert down there by,
It's actually an aluminum coated culvert, but it's technically a bridge because it's over 10 feet wide, but it's a
Okay.
culvert. For layman's terms, if you looked at it, you'd say that's not a bridge, it's a culvert. It's an arched culvert with a bottom to it and all that, but state specs, if it's over 10 feet, they refer to it as a bridge.
okay.
And they
It used-
inspect it too.
It actually used to be a bridge, it was a concrete bridge, but it was a narrow one-lane bridge.
Does that require much work this year?
No, that's perfect, there's nothing wrong with it, appears to be in good shape. They did the approaches on both sides of it, built it up with gravel, so it really needs virtually nothing. You know, a little shoulder work and all, but not anything extreme.
Can we do that at the
Stark
Bridge
Bridge?
down there?
Stark?
Yeah, the other bridge?
Yeah.
You're gonna get
What,
your
you
annual-
forgot about?
That's gonna be your annual question.
Yeah.
The Stock Bridge is not on the warrant, so we're gonna skip that tonight.
Am I reading the right warrant?
Pardon?
Yeah.
At the end of the meeting.
Yeah.
The public hearing is on the warrants. Public comment, that's a
So,
different section.
I mean, there's, on the distance, does that,
No, we got
did I
No,
answer well?
with what Brian was saying, I was a little bit curious, I didn't sound like you were gonna, you know, you were gonna do more to the, what you'd already done.
I was just glossing it over a little bit.
Well,
And then do some
yeah.
color work down below, but you straightened me out on that.
What we did was just put the base layer on that,
Yeah.
and we could probably leave it another year, but it isn't a good idea too, because you should really go back, put your top coat on.
Yeah.
And that's a good progressional way of doing things. Right, John?
Very good, being a road guy, you did a damn good job there.
Thank you.
The only other comment I would make though is you just be careful, cause when you do the math, it's $13 a foot. You certainly didn't.
Yeah, not for that, that's why we have to add some
Yeah,
on our
so
budget.
just so people
Yeah.
understand, cause
It's deceiving.
exactly.
We could do it at $13 a foot.
Yeah.
We
Well,
wouldn't
you
get
can come to London area,
Yeah.
I'll give you a couple roads built.
No, we have to put that on.
Driveway.
All right, any more discussion on the, article? Hearing none?
No, all I can say is, being a person who travels that road
Mm-hmm.
usually twice or more a day, I really appreciate what Jeff did on it. It came out
Easier
great.
on the smartphone.
I don't have that anymore.
Oh, you don't?
I'm back to my pickup truck, I sold the other one to my daughter.
Oh, I see.
That's good to hear. Thank you, Ron. All right, Article 14, to see if the town will vote to authorize the establishment of a capital reserve fund pursuant to RSA 35:1, known as the Transfer Station Roll-Off Truck, CRF, for the future purchase of a roll-off truck and to raise appropriate sum of $31,000 as summarized in the capital improvements plan. Anybody?
Good. There isn't one existing?
There is. I was waiting for someone to say that. Yes, if there's one already existing. There is a capital reserve that exists, it says capital, the transfer station vehicle and equipment. And there's been some discussion among the board here regarding that the intent of that article was for the roll-off truck initially, and it's gotten somehow something, inserted some wording in its inception that added the equipment, which now broadens the scope of it. So,
So what about the money that's already been placed in there that was applied towards the roll-off truck?
it can be, but
We'll have to change that name
next year, potentially we could change it and meld the two together,
or leave it, so once
Yeah,
equipment.
cause I remember when that fund was established and monies were put into it for the intent of a roll-off truck.
How much is in it?
So $30,000 now?
Yeah.
25,000
Yeah.
after, yeah, cause we used some of it for the, new roll-offs that we just purchased.
The containers.
Yeah.
Containers, yeah.
It's only about $6,000, but still.
I know, I've looked over the, roll-off truck, not recently here, and to be honest with you, that thing is in very good shape, from what I could see. I've seen many state trucks that are in a lot worse shape with half the age and half the hours. So, when we take good care of it, I think we'll get 6 years out of that, without a doubt. That's just my 2 cents.
Well, I'm thinking the same thing here, like, you know, we were having about the fire department truck that Ted was raising, do we need to put that much in there?
That's a damn good question. So we're listening to you guys.
Well, that's what I'm saying, we already had a fund,
Yep.
and some of that money has now been used for other things than what the fund was originally established for because of some slip up or whatever the verbiage.
Mhm.
So, this sounds like here, we're starting a brand new fund, and whatever funds we'd already allocated for roll-off truck now aren't available, we have to start over again.
Well, yeah,
This is
yeah,
available.
they're still available, we can't spend them on our own. Yeah,
Right.
But we were trying not to get, people are gonna be confused enough as it is, we weren't trying to add to the confusion. So we decided we would start this new CRF stating that this money is only for the roll-off truck. And next year, we would go to town meeting and ask that the money that's in the old CRF be transferred into the new CRF.
Can't do that this year.
Because we were trying not to get things too much confused.
We got a lot of warrants already.
Don't wanna muddy the waters any more than they already are.
Well, if they do the math, is what you said, 30,000?
About 25, I think, actually.
Oh, I thought you said it was more than that. Never
Well, I
mind.
think originally
We
it was around
just,
30.
we just spent six.
That's
What does a roll-off truck cost?
That one was like a quarter.
Yeah, right now I just talked to a guy, they bought one in,
about 150 grand.
it's 200,000 right now.
Depends what you.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
when,
and that was missing the cover system on it.
and when you came to the selectmen and asked for money for your roll-off truck, if I remember correctly, you wanted 20,000 a year for 10 years. You said, my roll-off truck is 10 years, it should have a useful life of 20 years.
Yeah.
So I'd like to start putting 20,000 a year aside for 10 years.
But
And
10
now,
years, it's never been
and
put
now
aside.
somehow, what?
We haven't put the money away for 10 years.
I know, but you only started asking 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So
That 20,000, if you remember correctly, Ted, was John being generous enough to split
Oh, yeah,
his
well-
so we could get something established.
Right,
So we
but
could put something in
But
there.
that's what you asked for. You said the truck, you estimated the truck would be $200,000. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, it's 200,000 right now. Right,
200,000
it's
3
right now,
years
it's
ago.
200,
Yeah,
Ted, I just talked to him, it's $200,000 right now.
but when 2 years ago, when you asked
Yeah,
to establish this CRF, you estimated it would be 200,000. So it hasn't changed. That's not the problem. The problem is you said, I'd like to start putting 20,000 a year for 10 years. So in 10 years, when I need to replace the truck, I'll have the money. But now everything's being compressed into 8 years. 2 years that we've already put money aside, and now instead of another 8 years, we're saying 6 years. So we're increasing the money that we're asking for on a yearly basis from 20,000 a year to 31,000 a year.
just
I mean,
like
I
John,
don't see why we couldn't have left it at 20,000.
just like John said, you do what you want, you're kicking the can down the road, at some point, you're gonna have a large expense. You're either gonna pay by